Big shots, like you said.
Okay. The police may come in.
All right, good evening, welcome everyone. Can folks on Zoom hear me okay? All right, excellent. Welcome to our fall open and mic night for writers here at Phoenixville Public Library. It's the library's semi-annual celebration of local writing talent. I'm Mark Pinto, the Director of Adult Services here, and I'm very much honored to be with all of you tonight, especially our writers. To state the obvious, libraries wouldn't exist without people to write the books that fill our shelves and our digital repositories. But even if you're somebody who just writes for pleasure and not for publication, by being here tonight, you're still contributing to public library's purpose, function as a shared community place. So thank you all for sharing your stories and poetry with everyone here tonight in this room, those viewing the program remotely on Zoom, and those who are watching the recorded video of tonight's festivities. So how this here thing works is I'll be drawing the writers' names at random, and after I introduce each writer, they'll have 5 minutes to read from their work. Let me get my alarm up here. Hopefully you can hear this sound. Let's see. No. Start. Cancel. That will be your signal that it's 5 minutes. And then you should wrap up as quickly as you can after you hear that. Okay. All right, let's draw our first writer. And that is, how about that, Vince Spezio, the head of the Phoenix Writers Group, Fiction Writers Group. Now, let's see, let me plug him back in so everybody can see him. Okay. So Vince, as I said, is the head of Phoenixville Public Library's Phoenixville Fiction Writers Group. He was born and raised in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. He has worked in mental health services for 10 years and is currently earning his master's degree in applied economics. Though he grew up in southeast Pennsylvania, he has also lived in New York City, Oregon, Ukraine, and the Czech Republic, each of which has been a source of inspiration for his writing. Vince is a member and the leader of Phoenix Fiction Writers, where he shares his work with like-minded authors. Vince, glad to have you with us tonight.
Good to be here tonight, Mark.
All right, let me see if we can raise the volume here for you.
How do I sound now?
Well, keep talking.
Oh, that'd just be a problem for me. Good talking.
Here we go.
Is anyone able to hear me better?
What about the laptop?
Not
or
great.
Turning up on the laptop?
I can't turn it up on the laptop
Okay.
because it'll create a whole bunch of interference,
That
which
sound,
we don't
okay.
want.
It's possible that I can go get a microphone. Maybe the microphone on my laptop just isn't picking up very well. Would you like me to go do that?
Well,
Maybe
let me turn this volume all the way up.
All right.
Doesn't want to go up any farther. How about this? Okay, speak now.
How about now?
Oh, there we go, there we go. All right, now let me turn you around so everybody can see you.
Well,
Turning the monitor around here. You can't see them. Maybe you
I can see.
You can see them.
I see them.
All right. All right, Vince, take it away.
You want me to plug the group first, or
Oh,
do you
yes.
want me to read my piece?
Yeah, go ahead and plug the group and then you can read your piece, sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, Phoenix Fiction Writers, we meet remotely on Zoom twice a month, first and third Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. We have writers from all backgrounds. We have people who have been published, like on literary magazines, online, and we have people who it's their first time. We have a lot of fun, and we're looking for people of all backgrounds. Welcome to join. So, and I'll share with you something that I'm going to be workshopping with my fellow writers. It is called I Am Being Hunted. Ready for me to begin, Mark?
Go right ahead.
I am being hunted, or at least chased, pursued through the forest like prey. I've strayed into something's territory, but that was over 30 minutes ago. It followed me back onto the trail, back to what should have been safety, and yet it still pursues me. I haven't seen it yet, but then again, I haven't looked back. Crack! Another massive branch crashes to the forest floor. Crack! And another. This one on the opposite side. There must be 2 of them at least. They're communicating, I think. The knocking sounds start again. Those were the first I'd heard of them. The first sounds that initially took me off the path. Less than an hour ago, I was walking through the woods. My woods that I know so well. I was following the deer path that I've traveled 1,000 times when I heard a noise off to my right. Knock, 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 knock. It was a broken rhythm, too slow to be a woodpecker, too regular to be falling acorns, but not regular enough to be something mechanical. No, an animal was making this sound, or a person. I thought perhaps it was a park ranger hammering something to a tree in my woods. My curiosity got the better of me, and I left the safety of my path for the dense foliage to investigate. After walking for 5 minutes, I could only tell the direction of the knocking, but I couldn't locate its origin. I found this peculiar, but not particularly alarming. Something I only now realize in retrospect was how quiet the forest was. No birds chirping or insects buzzing. Everything was still except for the gentle rustling of the wind through the dense summer leaves. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a man peering over a boulder at me, only his head and shoulders visible. At that distance, I couldn't tell, but he appeared to be wearing a thick black fur coat and sported an equally dark beard. This was an odd choice of attire for the summer. Maybe he was homeless, I told myself. I've heard of men who live off the grid, carrying what they own with them, walking up and down the trails, surviving off the land or off of other people. Needless to say, this wasn't a park ranger. I was about to call out to him when his head dipped below the boulder. And that was my first indication that something was wrong. My second was the size of the boulder. I could see the ground around the base it was pretty even and didn't slope on the other side where the man had been standing, and yet the giant rock was easily 7 feet high. For a man's shoulders and head to be sticking up from the other side, he'd have to have been standing on something, probably another rock or a stump, I rationalized, since no one could be that tall. What I didn't let myself acknowledge was the fact that now that I could estimate the boulder's height, I could also estimate its width, which meant I could make a guess at the width of the man. Standing on a log would only make him appear taller, but nothing could account for having shoulders that broad. I decided it was time to go. But shortly after I turned toward the deer path, I heard the first loud crack and the rustling of either a large branch or a small tree crashing to the ground. I picked up the pace as I heard another loud crack farther in the distance. The knocking returned, this time in stereo. One pattern of knocks about 30 yards behind me near the boulder, the other far out in the trees where the second crash had been. I began jogging through the dense brush. When I reached the deer path, I paused and listened. Something told me I was safe up there, that I had wandered into something else's territory when I left the path. I listened as the second set of knocks converged on the first. The forest was silent other than these sounds, and then they stopped. I waited for a minute to see if they'd return. Crack! This time from the other side of the trail. A third one? Or had they somehow managed to silently and swiftly cross the trail without my knowledge? I was outflanked, an ambush. I ran. I'm still running, just barely, however. I'm exhausted. The loud cracks and crashes are on both sides of me. Just behind me and only meters away. I'm so close to home, but I know I won't make it. That's fine. Let them catch me. Let the anticipation be over. Oh, but there's my home, my den. I can almost see it. I know it's right around the bend, a little ways off the path. I pick up pace, reinvigorated by the chase, but it's no use. With my home in sight, I hear a massive figure rip through the underbrush and onto the path behind me. On my rocky lawn, at the mouth of my cave, a massive hand wraps around my shoulder. Powerful, hairy fingers stretch all the way across my chest. The hand attempts to spin me around, to lift me up. My talons dig into the loose stone and soil below. I steady myself and shrug my shoulder forward, causing the massive creature to lurch as I spin and catch it by the throat, my sharp claws slicing through its supple flesh. The creature's eyes grow wide with shock and pain in its last moments. It looks almost human, but no, he's much better than a human, much more meat on his bones. I lean in close to his simian face as his eyes slowly shut and blood pools on the rocky earth at our feet. You should not have come here, I say, though I doubt he understands me. Yes, you are the mighty Sasquatch, but I am the Wendigo, and these are my woods. The forest is filled with the anguished howls of his kin, watching helplessly from the surrounding trees as I take the first bite.
Thank you, Vince. Great job, great job. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Happy early Halloween.
Yeah. All right, great job. Good, good, good. How many we got on Zoom here? All right. Okay, any other writers come in the meantime here that are scheduled for tonight? No? Okay. All right. Then next we have Teresa Werba. All right. Teresa Werba, formerly Teresa Rodriguez, is the author of 3 books of poetry, most recently Sonnets, a collection of 65 sonnets, Shanty Arts 2020. Her work has appeared in such journals as the Scarlet Leaf Review, the Wilderness House Literary Review, Spindrift, Mezzo Kamen, the Moonwell Rainbow, Fevers of the Mind, Serotonin, The Road Not Taken, and the Society of Classical Poets Journal. Her work ranges from forms such as the ode and sonnet to free verse, with topics ranging from neurodivergence, the writing process, love, loss, and aging, to faith and disillusionment. Her website is www.bardsinger.com, where you can view videos of her performance poetry and find information about her books. And follow Teresa on Instagram and Twitter at The Sonnet Queen. Teresa.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everybody. Just to show you, if you're interested, I have 2 of my books. This is Longer Thoughts. This is an eclectic mix of various types of poetry. However, sonnets is sonnets. 65 wonderful, beautiful sonnets about all kinds of things. So if you love formal poetry, come and see me. I left my working copy at home, so I don't want to open up one because those are pristine. So what I would like to read tonight are some newer poems. I say, post-sonnet works. The first one I'd like to read, coming from a neurodivergent person, I thought maybe some of you might understand this one a little how it feels anyway. It's called My Bed.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Do you want me to wait?
Yeah, I just don't know where
Right there.
Put the remote. How do I get it there? Okay. All right.
Am I good?
You're good.
Okie doke. My bed. When life has burdened me and robbed me of an easy way, I've looked for succor, such as one can access every day. A simple, sweet solution to the traumas of my mind. A place where I can hide and heal that's never hard to find. The antidote to what is past, and thus what lies ahead. I found it in the comfort and the safety of my bed. A never-changing presence in the middle of my room, which in some years became more like a closet or a tomb, enveloping, encasing me from daily stress and strain, where I could go to block away all memories and pain, where away I flee from suffering and overwhelming dread, applying to the comfort and the safety of my bed. I've cried and sobbed and moaned and wept and ached and mourned and prayed and slept and dreamed and tossed and turned and battled when afraid. My fears consuming night times and my mornings as I'd waken, as if the terrors swallowed me and I was left forsaken. And yet, despite the struggles I endured within my head, I'd wake within the comfort and the safety of my bed. A place of nurture for such things as one's creative mind, for words will come to me within the wellspring that I find. A place to think, to write, to make, and birthing something new. I recognize my little universe deserves its due. For this is where I've struggled, labored, toiled, worked, and bled. A tribute to the comfort and the safety of my bed. For it has not been such a haven solely just for me, for it has been a respite also for my family. I've hugged and cuddled and wiped tears and sung, read books and prayed. A mother's love, a grandma's love, both fervently conveyed. Thus an extension of my heart, where open arms are spread. Welcome to the comfort and the safety of my bed. But in this bed I also knew what violation meant. Enduring loveless love in ways I tried to circumvent. But now that time is past, so very far away from me, that it remains the providence of fading memory. So sanctified, restored, and dedicated now instead, I triumph in the comfort and the safety of my bed. Oh, wonderful and precious is this sacred place to me, a temple where my psyche can abide secure and free, my inner world protected by an outer world of peace, a mighty fortress where my cares and woes and fears decrease. For this is why the various enemies in life are fled. My champion is the comfort and the safety of my bed. In retrospect and looking now, it does appear to me that since I've coped, it is the most exquisite therapy. For this is how I've gotten through and managed to survive. But not just that, I've done the more by managing to thrive. And so I lay here pondering what future lies ahead. All glory to the comfort and the safety of my bed. Thank you. This next one is called The Ability to Forget. Why should the past be brought again and resurrected from the dead, engendering regret? Why should we dredge up memories, old specters of our miseries, depleting all our energies, rather than just forget? What good is it to think again of all that's passed and gone before, producing such upset that fading wounds are never healed? The scab that's picked will bleed unsealed and trickle what was once congealed. Shouldn't we just forget? The mind is very helpful, for it has a proven simple way to rally from a threat. It hides the hurt, makes wrong okay, diminishing it day by day within a mental hideaway, creating how we forget. Considering the benefit of such a mechanism, Why is there an issue yet? Instead of letting traumas die, remembering will amplify the record. So why not deny those thoughts and thus forget? Here, I propose a remedy, a healthy way to move ahead before what's done is set. Reliable for every need, in outcome it can be agreed. This panacea is guaranteed, the ability to forget. Thank you.
See one more writer that has come in. Anybody else hiding there that I haven't seen? All right. We're going in random order, Greg, so luck of the draw. Okay, who do we have next? We have Jean LaGreca next. All right. Jean is a semi-retired 80-year-old real estate professional. He's been working in the real estate field for over 60 years. In his spare time, he likes to write stories, and tonight he'll read one of his whimsical stories entitled Birdie the Little White Clouds. Jean, welcome.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for putting up with my nonsense. I tend to favor writing for children because my childhood wasn't too fabulous. So I want to bring to you a situation where we all look up at the sky every day, the blue and the gorgeous clouds. Well, I created a whimsical fantasy about the clouds coming to life. The story is about the Cloudolini family of clouds, a respected formation that's been hovering over Italy's Tuscany region for centuries. Birdie, one of the many clouds that make up the Cloudolini formation, has been selected to move up to the front ranks. This honor must be earned with getting trained and informed about how clouds help create the weather patterns in the area. Our story starts on a typical day high above the historic city of Florence, the capital of Tuscany. Birdie had no idea that he was chosen to move up in the ranks after being a little white cloud of the formation for many, many years. It was a beautiful early summer morning. The sun was just starting to rise and the clouds were forming as usual. "Hey Birdie, I got word that you're wanted up on the front line of our formation," said the little cloud, Bobby. "What's that all about? I'm kind of happy back here with you and the rest of us little clouds," said Birdie. "Well, I would sure feel honored if I were you," said Bobby. Birdie started to move toward the front of the formation, passing by most of his longtime cloud buddies. He then started to reflect on the many fond memories of his past. As a young cloud, he trailed along at the rear of the formation with the other little clouds and enjoyed each day moving through the morning fresh air. They were all happy memories. I guess it was time for him to move on. Birdie kind of snapped out of his dreamy thoughts as soon as he heard a commanding voice from Dominic, one of the heads of the formation. "Birdie, welcome to our front line. I'm Dominic. I'll be guiding you during your transition to the front of our formation. Thanks for inviting me up front. Do I need to do anything special?" said Birdie. "Just be aware and take notice of how our formation is piloted during our normal operations," said Dominic. The next few days were exceptionally calm and clear. Birdie was really enjoying the new cloud members and being part of the Cloudolini front line. The last day of Birdie's first week started off with a bang. That's thunder and lightning. Dark gray clouds started to move toward the formation. Orders were quickly given to move up out of the way of the storm moving in. Dominic, this is pretty scary. I was always sent above the formation when foul weather was approaching, said a frightened Birdie. No need to be concerned, Birdie. Just look on and see how we handle a storm. Also, be aware of the positive effect the storm has on the entire area below us, said Dominic. What good comes from flooding and damage from lightning? Asked Birdie. It's a good question. We do take on the good and the bad of a severe storm system. However, think about the land below us with its greenery, trees, and our food crops, which need water and sun to provide nourishment for the living beings and animals below us, said Dominic. What about the damaging wind and lightning, said Birdie. Well, again, we take good and bad of a storm with a grain of hopefulness. You must realize that our weather patterns have been gracing our skies from the beginning of time, said Dominic. So you're saying that the gray cloud formations are not to be our enemies, but our partners in providing a sustainable planet, said Birdie. Yes, yes, but I will add that it's not so bad being the white puffy clouds surrounded by the magnificent sunburst of light and the clear blue skies above Tuscany, responded Dominic. As the storm went on with high winds, rain, thunder, and lightning, Birdie watched as Dominic called on the many groups of different cloud formations that were part of the team that provided some of the working parts of controlling a storm. Directions were given as to how they would position themselves to create a worthy weather pattern to help handle the storm. Dominic, how do I determine who starts a storm? Asked Birdie. The answer to that question is God's above, said Dominic. Birdie soon established a daily routine that he was trained for as one of the team members on the front line. The months went by. Birdie was really not happy with the job. He didn't enjoy the ups and downs of the weather patterns or the demands that confronted him. The positive part of the job was noticing the splendor of the many different available clouds used in his assigned formation. Okay, there we go. Clouds of many different shades of colors and shapes excited Birdie. Maybe if he had the opportunity to explore the artistic use of these clouds, he would find true joy in his place with the Cloudolini formation. Birdie remembered talking with one of the formation clouds, Rosa, who shared the same artistic ideas as he. So Birdie set out to find Rosa, who was stationed in the third tier of the formation. Word got out, he wanted to talk to her, and they did finally get together. In their first meeting, they both brainstormed and expressed a strong interest in developing a system to create beautiful sunsets. After many months of Rosa and Birdie's creative use of all the different cloud color variations and the total cooperation of the selected clouds that participated, Birdie and Rosa were finally ready to introduce the most beautiful sunsets ever to grace Italy's Tuscan area. Word quickly spread through the entire population of Tuscany. The sunsets were much more dynamic and expressive than usual, with incredible sunbursts through a variety of cloud formations that were never seen before. Every sunset was so special to the inner spirit of the spectator. It is believed all privileged to view these legendary sunsets experienced a loving understanding of the miracle that created our planet and the wonderment of a joyful life. As for Birdie and Rosa, their long-term relationship blossomed into not only magnificent sunsets, but the creation of many little white clouds.
Hey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to have you here. Nobody over there? One, two, three, four, five. Okay, thanks, Steve. Oh, why don't you go around the other way?
I got it.
Okay.
I got it. Don't have my cane, but it's all right.
All right. All right, who do we have next? Next we have Mr. Greg Fox. Who says he became a writer and poet in high school as a way to get girls to go out with him. He then went on to earn a degree in English literature from St. Joe's, but never thought he could make a living with words. Ironically, he worked as a newspaper reporter and editor, then taught creative writing at Phoenixville Middle School for 20 years. He retired in 2020 during the COVID lockdown. He writes short stories that almost always include references to Catholicism and his own father. He's trying to master the art of the vignette, makes attempts at poetry, songwriting, and rap, but otherwise does not take his writing seriously. He has absolutely no interest in being published and has nothing worthwhile to say to you tonight.
I do have a word of advice. If any of your retirement bucket lists include words downhill mountain biking, just cross it right out. You know, I admire you for your dedication to prose and poetry, your willfulness, and your ability to outline and revise your stories, exhibiting your craft the way it was meant to be presented. Twice each year I leave here thinking, damn, I wish I could write like that. But whatever comes out of my mouth tonight is a mere rant composed sometime between 10 a.m. this morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Writing in a crowded newsroom with an editor constantly hovering over my shoulder asking, is it done yet, is it done yet, is it done yet, extinguished all my fear of deadlines years ago. Once I learned the formulas, all I needed to do was plug in the information gathered earlier from connections I made with local police departments, businessmen, politicians, and their henchmen, some with middle names that made reference to various appendages of the human body. Right? Then all writing is formula. Everything we say here tonight has all been done before. In some ways, we are no different than that room full of monkeys chained to typewriters, clacking out random words and phrases that may one day become the great American novel, though probably not. All right? Yeah, I believe I can teach a monkey to write. If I give him a list of the 12 plot lines, the 7 human conflicts, and the diagram of the hero archetype, but I can't turn that monkey into a Tolstoy or a Hemingway unless I unchain him and allow him to climb as many trees as he so desires. That was my goal and my challenge as a writing teacher. If you're wondering why the hell I'm here tonight, let me throw the question back at you. Why do you do this? What is your purpose for writing? If I ask each of you, every answer may sound different, but careful interpretation will uncover the same exact answer. You are here because you wish to entertain. There's a certain satisfaction you find in your ability to make your audiences laugh or cry, to dream dreams they never imagined, to travel to destinations they will never see, to experience the fear of war, the beauty of nature, the power of love, using nothing but blank words that you pull out of thin air, costing you nothing but the time it takes to record them. You are the entertainers in the circuses that follow the bread, the 2 essential elements needed to prevent a society from dissolving into total anarchy. That is quite a bit of responsibility on your shoulders. So if you're going to keep doing this, do it well. All right? My own writing ability or inability, whatever you choose, was formed by a need for survival in an environment that valued athletic prowess over intelligence. Telling a girl the smell of her shampoo made me think of the ocean breeze on a cool summer night seemed to work better than some jock asking her if she wanted to go to his game. All right? In college, I merely used it to BS my way through essays I otherwise had little hope of passing. Then out of necessity it became a source of income, though not quite enough to support my wife and a growing family. Eventually it brought me full circle here to Phoenixville, where I resisted teaching anything prescribed in the curriculum. Education can teach a student no more about writing than boot camp can teach a soldier about war. All right? I'll leave you with this. I remember long ago needing just one more story to fill out my section in the newspaper when my mentor suggested I call a nursing home. Old people have the most interesting stories, he said. My very first call led me to a centenarian named John Sullivan, who was a sailor in the Great White Fleet that toured the world as a show of nascent American industrial and military power around the turn of the 20th century. Upon arriving with our staff photographer, I found Mr. Sullivan waiting for us in his bed, impeccably dressed in his best suit. With the tape recorder hissing and the camera snapping, John Sullivan rattled on for more than an hour about the day he witnessed the American Navy stealthily cruise into Manila Harbor with the unprovoked intention of sinking the entire Spanish fleet. "I once shook hands with Teddy Roosevelt," he told us. "He was a big man, a real big man." After the story was published, I began receiving calls from one of his family members claiming that I had in fact fabricated much of the story, demanding that I hand over the tapes of my conversation. "Grandpop never told us any of that stuff," he said. "Why would he want to tell you?" I had only one thing to say to him. "Because I asked him and I listened." I said, "You need to spend more time with your grandpa." Slam. All right? If you ever ran out of stories to write, inside of every soul, you will find one that needs to be told. All you need to do is ask the right questions and listen.
He always has something worthwhile. All right. Next we have Christopher Alden, who believes that good writing stems from predatory observation of all facets of life. He runs the Mainline Writers Group Critique Workshops and is a board member of the Brandywine Valley Writers Group. And when he's not writing, he's attempting home improvement projects or taking lessons from his rescue dog on how to be a better human. You can find him on Twitter at twitter.com/Alden's Thoughts. Christopher.
Thank you and hello. This is a monologue called Stiff Prop, and it is two teenage stoners who are working in a haunted house, setting up a haunted house, when they find the owner of the haunted house, Cliff, dead. Doug, we've been here 20 minutes and Cliff hasn't moved. Personally, I think he's dead. Have you seen him move? No, me neither. And to be honest, he looks a little blue, but that could be the lighting in here. I told him graveyard scenes need moonlight, not black light. Maybe he took my suggestion and that's why he was on the ladder changing out light bulbs. What? Yes, I suppose that could have happened. He either died and then fell, or he fell and then died. So it could have been natural causes or unnatural causes. I hope it was the first one, because cracking your head on a tombstone, even if it is plastic, is not a good way to go. Yeah, you can say that again. Completely ironic. The king of haunted houses dies in his own haunted house. Too bad it's before the haunting season has even begun. But we need to report it. Doug. Doug! Are you listening to me? Doug! Cliff is dead. We have to do something. Wait. Did you just say you think we could use Cliff as a prop? Are you out of your fucking mind? Dude, is sucking on a bong always the first thing you do when you get up? We are not using Cliff as a prop. Look, I know Halloween is around the corner and we're short on actors, but I don't see Cliff pulling off an Academy Award performance, do you? The man's not even cold yet and this is how you react? What? You want to dress him as Dracula and have him coming out of the coffin, here, in the graveyard. Look, Cliff is dead, but he's not going to be undead. That would be awesome, but I don't think it's going to happen. Besides, how are you going to stand him up? I suppose he'll be stiff in a few hours, but no. No way, dude. This is way over the top. We need to report his death to the authorities. You just can't keep dead bodies for your own ghoulish purposes whenever you feel like it, collecting them like homo figures. A homo figure. You know, those little fucking porcelain people. My mom's got 1 million of those things all over the place. Cliff is not some dead homo. He's dead, as in D-E-A-D, dead. Like dearly departed. Cashed in his chips, kicked the bucket. He's pegged the fuck out, man, and he's not coming back. I am calm. Yeah, I'll hit that. You've been bogarting it anyway. Look, Even if Cliff's favorite character was Dracula, I don't remember him mentioning anything about being Dracula. Yeah, he said that to me too, but just because he said he wanted to haunt his own haunted house didn't mean he was serious. Come on, Doug, you know Cliff, always full of bullshit, always looking for the drama or the next angle. Well, that's true, showmanship was in his blood, but not now. Besides, if we did prop him up, let's say in that last room with all those mirrors, which, by the way, I think is better than the graveyard, that's totally illegal. We'd go to jail if anybody found out. Doug, do you want to go to jail? I don't want to go to jail. My parents would freak if they found out I was in jail. Nope, I would ask for my own cell. We're not bunking together in jail. We're not doing this. How would we even pull it off? The other actors would find out. And what about Tori? She's Cliff's wife, for Christ's sake. Dude, she's gonna ask questions. They talk all the time. Well, at least they used to. Obviously that's over now. What? Cliff told you he was going to divorce Tori for that girl who plays the chainsaw murderer. That girl is smoking hot, even when she's wearing the Jason mask and covered in blood. She might go for this. I don't know, man. How do you plan on preserving him? A few days in that coffin and Cliff will start to smell. Way more than his usual BO. No, I don't think dousing him with Axe body spray is going to work. Nope, I am not asking Mr. Leavitt to embalm Cliff. That's a huge ask. Besides, we'd have to get him to come here. I don't know if that sort of thing can be done on site. We're not talking DoorDash or Uber embalming, you know. How are we going to pay him? What? Yes, his daughter Deb did have a thing for me last summer. What's that got to do with anything? No, we did not get it on in a hearse. That's a rumor. Okay, I admit it, we did do it in the hearse. But that's between you and me. You think she knows how to embalm someone? Possible. Still, embalming a dead man just so we can use him for a Halloween prop seems a little much. Kinda makes us look like sick lunatics. It's workable, yeah. Think about it. The king of haunted houses, dead and haunting his own haunted house. How poetic is that? You know, I think Cliff would approve. I think he'd say, boys, the show must go on.
Okay. Everybody enjoying this so far?
Yeah.
All right, great. Christina Uti is next. Dr. Christina Uti is a Philadelphia-born writer and teacher. She's one of 5 children born to immigrant parents and has 5 children of her own. She has over 200 articles published on the topics of mental health and addiction. Dr. Uti has written articles for Dyslexia magazine on the topic of education and has articles featured in Reflections magazine. She received her BA in English from Temple University, her instructional certification and MA in philosophy from Westchester University, an MFA in creative writing from Rosemont College, and her doctorate in education in policy planning and administration from Westchester University. Her dissertation, Mass School Closures in the School District of Philadelphia, Personal Narratives and Impacts, has recently been published by Digital Commons. Her debut novel, Breaking Infinity, is a coming-of-age memoir that delves into the darkest emotions of adolescence. The novel won a Novel of Distinction award. Christina.
Hello, everybody. So I guess I'll begin by saying I wrote this novel because I felt like I had to write it. Like you said, it's a coming-of-age memoir. It goes from when I was about 12 years old to about 18 years old. So the excerpt I chose for tonight has to deal with a time in my life where I got sexually assaulted and I was heavily into my addiction, and this is the point where it turned for the worst. So if that bothers anybody, you want to step out, I can understand. So a little background, my parents divorced when I was 12. I felt guilty. I felt guilty for it, and shortly after that is when my addictions began. So I moved out of my parents' house when I was 16. I started dealing math with this guy Keith around that time, and was living with this guy Joey, and my life was a mess. So I'm picking it up at the point where him and I were dealing. I walk into his house to pick up some stuff or whatever I was doing, and there was a guy in there, and he was shooting up drugs. And I was 16 years old, and I totally freaked out. I'm like, I'm not gonna do this. I want no parts of this. And I left. He was in Collegeville, and I thumbed it back, which was a common thing in the 80s, hitchhiking. I thumbed it back to Conshohocken. So there, along the way, is when I was thumbing it, these guys picked me up, I got sexually assaulted, I jumped out of the car as it was driving down Conshohocken Road, made my way to Marywood Park, and I'm in the middle of the park in the middle of the night, so I'll pick it up there. This guy comes and I ask him if he can get some stuff. So, if you want some stuff, I'll have to go around the corner, he says, looking in the direction of Fayette Street, showing the direction with his thumb. I do want some. It's all I want right now. My pulse picks up as I reach into my pocket. Okay, I get the 10 out. I'll walk with you. I don't trust him one bit. It's all the money I have. That wouldn't be too cool. I'll be right back. I look at him. Promise, he says, like that means anything. Okay, I'll wait right here then, I say, having no choice. My money's in his hands now. I regret it immediately, but I don't know what else to do with myself, sitting in the park in the middle of the night with nowhere to go. God forbid I show up at Joey's at this time of night. Those guys might have been following me. I need to stay awake. I watch him walk toward the moonlight, doubting if he will be back. I'm so stupid. I sit back on the swing and swing, watching the dirt again. Tears fill my eyes. Someone touches my shoulder and I lose my balance, almost falling off. It's him. Let's go to my house, he says. I sniffle and wipe my eyes. I'm not so sure about this. Where do you live? Right here, and he points to the park house. You're kidding me, right? If it's true, he can be some stalker who's been watching me out the window. It's my grandmother's place. Come on. He starts walking toward the house. I follow behind him. There's a dim light coming from the back porch. He has the key and opens the door softly. Come on. He motions me into the kitchen. I enter silently, feeling like an invader. Have a seat. I'm scared to death. I can't believe I'm sitting in a stranger's house just to get high. I take a seat at the kitchen table. The table seats 4. It's clean with doily placemats. I think of Mom. She taught me how to crochet when I was 6 years old. When I got good enough, we made a set of doily placemats for the kitchen table. She crocheted 5 of them while I made 2. The chairs are cushioned, the counters lined with glass jars of sugar, coffee, and tea. This is probably his grandmother's house. No guy I know keeps his place looking like this. Be right back, he says, and heads towards the other room. What now? He returns and goes to the sink. I have no idea what he's doing. He sits next to me with a spoon, dumps the stuff in, and squirts water in from a syringe. I think I'm going to pass out. I stare at the process as if I'm not here. He ties a band around his arm, finds a vein, plunges and releases it into his arm. Rinses a syringe, stares at me. I stare back in disbelief. This is a bad dream. No, this is a nightmare. He tries to hand it to me. I sit here looking at him to see if he will keel over and drop dead. Well, he says to me, are you okay? Great, here, he says while he holds out the syringe for me to take. I don't take it. What? He asks. I never did that. Do you want it? Well, yeah, but I don't know what to say. I don't know what I want. I want to forget that guy's thing in my mouth, forget their laughter, forget my head hurts where I got whacked, forget that Mom left and the divorce was all my fault, forget that Dad threw me out, forget that I screwed up school and got put in dumb classes, forget that I have no home, forget that I have no one to love, forget that my hair is a rat's nest, forget. Yeah, sure, I say to him. He does it for me, and I don't even know his name. That's it. Is that too short? Thank you.
Right. Dan Erdman is next. Where are you, Dan? Here we go. Dan is a geologist and licensed site remediation professional. He's the principal of an environmental consulting firm that he founded in 2004. When not writing technical documents, he writes poetry, an activity he has dabbled in for several decades. He is presently organizing his collection for the publication of 2 or maybe 3 books. He has been published in a few of Katie Comer's Affinity Collab issues, is an active participant in the Meeting House Writers Group, frequently reads at the monthly Steel City Open Mic in Phoenixville and is returning to Phoenixville Library this evening for his third time. Glad to have you back, Dan.
Thank you, Mark. I have 3, maybe 4 times allows short stories and poems tonight. This first one is not a true story, at least I don't think it is. It might be, I don't know. It's called Clothespins. In the middle of the country, 10 hours from anywhere, there is an antique clothespin museum. Busy people from cities everywhere place their washed clothes into their dryers at home, push the start button, and then drive to the museum to buy some souvenirs. I myself was passing by and following those who just left the museum, and some hours later down the road I watched them, one by one, toss their souvenir clothespins out of their car windows into the countryside. And I saw countryside children along the side of the road filling bushels with their discarded clothespins. I saw clean white and blue work clothes hung on lines, amply secured with multiple clothespins, wave at us as an elder in a rusted pickup truck with a bed full of surplus clothespins headed back toward the antique clothespin museum. And the city folk went home and set their dryers for another 20 minutes because their clothes were still damp. The second one is an absolutely true story about a 20-something-year-old guy from New York who went down to Texas to find some work in the oil fields. That was me. And a drifter type from Michigan who was working with me. Our paths crossed for a very short time. His name was Dan also, but he went by the nickname Mutt, and his last name was Barnes, and this one is called 2 for Mutt Barnes. Mutt Barnes saved my life. We were working behind a drill rig on a ship in the Gulf of Mexico, roughnecking they call it, when a cable on a 200-pound piece of iron about 30 feet up in a derrick, a traveling block they call it, snapped. And Mutt pulled me away before the iron hit the deck where I was standing. Dead silence as the crew looked at the deep dent in the ship's steel deck until the crew chief said, "Your brain bucket wouldn't help you with that one, son." Mutt and I looked at each other and shrugged, me with my mouth wide open but unable to speak. And Mutt just said, "I owe him a beer," when we got back to shore. It was a calm day with calm seas, so we just went back to work. About 5 days later, and still at sea, 6-foot swells and heavy horizontal rain pulling drill pipe up the derrick, coming out of the hole they call it, when a heavy piece of equipment, a breakout tongue they call it, was rocked free from the side of the derrick, swung around and hit me in the lower back. I was knocked against the drill rig, lost my hard hat. It felt like a sucker punch, and I turned around to punch. The first thing I saw, smashed Mutt Barnes square in the mouth, and he fell back over a rack of drill rods. Just the wind and the rain, and the crew stood still, stared at us for a long many seconds, and somebody muttered, "This could be a good fight." Mutt just wiped the blood from his mouth, pointed at me, shrugged, held up 2 fingers, stood up, and went back to work. Get out of the hole, pull anchors. About 4 hours back to port, and the bars might still be open. Right or wrong, that's a true story. This next one is a little more timely. It's about an incident about last month with a little poetic justice in here of a change of things. It's called Station Wagon. Granddaughter, earbuds in, nods politely as I talked about the old station wagon with the blue plastic skylights. Who knows what she's listening to these days? Tapped her on the shoulder 20 minutes later, and so she takes the earbuds out, and I ask her if I sound like a broken record. She asks, "What's a record?" and rolls her eyes as I try to explain the workings of a phonograph, diamond needles, turntable RPMs, and flat vinyl things with grooves. This child still has no idea what a broken record would sound like, or why one would or would not want to sound like one. But she understands that it has something to do with music, and so she asked me if I would like to listen to her music through her earbuds. I hesitate, think that most likely I would not, but agree to try, and I'm soon tapping my foot to familiar but unexpected Bob Marley reggae. And she watches me, and she follows along, keeping beat with her hands on the table. A few minutes later, she taps me on the shoulder as my head is bobbing and my eyes are closed. I take the earbuds out, and she asks, "When are we going to Milky Way Farm for ice cream?" I smile and say, "That's what I've been asking you over and over again, like a broken record, for the last 20 minutes. I'll get the station wagon out of the garage, and we'll go now, okay?" "Sure," she says. "But what's a station wagon?"
Christine Emmert is next. Christine Emmert writes across the genres. She is an actress, director, writer, and educator who finds joy in many landscapes. Presently, she is involved in the publication of her novella, Dreaming of Storms. She finished a film last summer of her one-woman play, From Out the Fiery Furnace, for Friends of Hopewell National Park. Look for her in poetry journals and on Amazon. More recently, she has been a judge of some writing contests. Her current dreams and reality center on raising funds to do Albi's Three Tall Women with two other actresses in Montana next summer. Christine.
Okay, I can't pretend to use a microphone, so I hope you can all hear me. Good. In honor of the fact that everybody else is writing interesting stories, I'm also reading one called Abandonment, in honor of Halloween, I guess, or some version thereof. All right. There came a light, quick and flashing, and then another one. But she was watching the speed of the flashes. It was all she had seen for days, lying in the dankness of the cave with her hands closed over a patch of food that they'd left her. Well, the trolls were the ones who took pity, handing her food for survival. And as she lay there, the light's pulse stopped as if in observation of her, and then moving quickly to form a spinning circle around her. Now light, she understood, was both beginning and end. One came out of the light and again looked to go into it when one passed away. So, was she birthing or dying? The remaining food sustained her there between being and non-being. Outside, in the lair, the dragon moaned, expecting his meal when her food ran out. When she gave up asking whether she was dead or alive, oh, he knew he could not make it through the cave entrance. She must emerge. He must wait. Stories from her childhood had brought her to this end. She fell purposely into a dream. Now, dreams were tunnels into stories over which she had no control. She must consider how she might ration the end of her life. When she looked out, she saw the dragon illuminating the night with his fiery speech, and he turned to observe her, and the glory of his colors blinded her for a moment. "Will you carry me home?" she inquired. I laughed and his laughter was a great wind sounding. Not home, no. He licked his scarlet tongue close to her, but into another dream. I will have to digest you first. In my stomach you will be safe. Oh, no, thank you, she said politely. The last slice of mushroom was all that was left in the pouch. Now she must decide. What could a dragon's stomach be like? She first smelled sulfur and then roses as he snuggled close to the opening. A dream within a dream. She drew in her breath, abandoning the moment, and stepped into the future. The end. Look like this are a little difficult. If you don't want to run over Mark.
Don't wait.
No, no. It's never good to run over the host, right?
Show must go on.
I think it's like 3 years bad luck.
At least. CK is next. CK Cass Sobey continues to live a life of curiosity, having retired from her professional businesses to spend more time reimagining her life. CK spends much of her time writing, creating, and cooking. CK has 3 published books: Henry the Turtle, a delightful children's book; Musings, Wool Gathering, and Ghosts, a book with her photographs that was inspired by walks during the first 2 years of COVID, and that she will be reading from tonight; and a collection of tiny stories, diminutive tales from the tip of my imagination. She's currently working on 2 books, and you can find out more about CK at www.innerharvesting.com, and you can reach her at kassobey@gmail.com. Cass.
Or you can speak to me here. My friends call me Cass, so you can do that. The amusement park. It's very quiet here. I remember the days when children screamed with delight, giggling and chasing each other behind the rides and tents. Pink cotton candy rose a mile high. Kids dunked for crisp apples or bit into the caramel-covered ones. I work in the big tent. I was a trapeze performer. That was when I was alive, 100 years ago it seems, and probably was. Boys in knickers pulled little girls' pigtails. The constant ruckus, the life of it all. This had been no ordinary amusement park. This was the largest in the country, traveling from state to state, setting up, then dismantling the rides, the arcades, and then putting it all back together in new towns, with children's delight, standing by and watching. That was a life worth living. I married the Ferris wheel operator, Stan, the love of my life. We called it the go-round back then. The day the go-round broke down, terrified screams could be heard all over the park. No one moved. We watched in horror as the children rocked the seats. Stan shouted my name. I came running as one child tried to scramble out of the very top chair. A woman beside me grabbed my hand. It scared her to death, silent words murmuring from her quivering lips. I realized she was praying. I climbed up the support beams. Behind me, other trapeze and high wire performers followed. We'd worked together for so many years that we instinctively became a team. I yelled at the kids not to rock. I shouted at the kid climbing out, "Get back in your seat right now," my voice commanding, pleading. He obeyed. I reached for the next bar and then the next, positioning my feet on the support beams. Okay, I thought, I can lift them down one by one to Gloria, to Kurt, and then Stan will grab them. It took hours of slow movement, speaking quietly to the frightened kids. We did it. What a night that was after we closed. We built up a huge bonfire and enjoyed delicious food arranged by our chefs from all over the world. Some homemade beer and some exotic blends added joviality to our celebration. Strong brewed coffee in the morning. Next day, the town mayor presented all of us with citations. We were very proud. The amusement park traveled and operated for 5 more years. There was another machinery breakdown on the Ferris wheel years later, but we saved the kids again. I slipped at the last, and that was that. I died. Such is life. You never know how it's going to happen. Thanks to our fortune teller, I chatted with Stan for years until he passed. Now, we don't need the fortune teller. I'm going to try one more, a shorty. And this is actually the newer book. It's the newer book, Tiny Stories, which is how I write. And this one, maybe, The End of a Story. The book has been a major part of Anna's life for the last 30 days. She was depressed, knowing there was only one final brief chapter remaining, and then the inescapable last page. It'd been a fabulous month. The book wove its way into every part of her days. Questions flooded her mind about the ending. She had thought of several endings. How would the author end it? Anna lay in bed thinking about all the possibilities. Her bed pillows had been fluffed, the room scented with lavender, all in readiness for the last chapter. She felt very edgy. The unknown ending will surely bring forth a torrent of tears or smiles. This book had done it all along. She had lived it, she had loved it, the way the story wove together, the words had moved her profoundly. They stayed with her. The words had taken root. After reading the final chapter, Anna turned to the last page. The clock in her room ticked away the minutes. A lonely tear trailed down Anna's cheek. She kept reading, and then she smiled.
Looks like we have 5 more writers to go. Holly Beebe is up next. Holly is a self-taught poet who self-published a poetry book last year and gave copies to friends. Most of her poetry is written in rhythm and rhyme because that is how it comes to her. When something moves her deeply or strikes her as humorous, it generally is captured in a poem. She's also working on 2 books for which she would like to find a publisher. One describes her transition from the corporate world to starting her own business teaching seniors how to dance in a chair. It is titled Dancing in My Chair, How I Found My Groove at 60 and Never Looked Back. The second book is about dating in midlife and is titled Find the One and Then I'm Done. One woman's midlife dating adventures and what she learned. Holly will be reading one of her poems and a short chapter from the midlife dating book. Holly.
Hello. Okay, this is a short poem. If anybody ever has a cat that won't leave their lap, this is what this is about. It's called Cat in the Lap. Upon my lap there sits a cat, and what on earth to do with that? For she could sit here all the day. I have no time to work or play. I cannot cook, I cannot eat, I cannot rise upon my feet. And if she never leaves this spot, I will be a sorry lot, for rigor mortis will set in. I'll be stiff and awfully thin, yet she will die a happy cat, contented where she sat and sat. And so they'll come to cremate us. It's what we want, there'll be no fuss. Then up in smoke we both will go, or maybe we'll go down below. Forever on my lap's a cat, a double homicide at that. Okay, this is the first chapter of the book on midlife dating. I have 20 chapters. I met 20 different men. Quite an experience. This one's called Choose Your Dentist Carefully. A handsome man approached me on the dating site and seemed very interested in my musical pursuits. Brian wanted to know what genre of music I preferred to sing and let me know that he too played guitar and sang. I perused his photos and noticed he was very fit, had a beautiful garden, and was holding his dog in one photo, which immediately appealed to me since I love animals. His profile was extremely well written, and he explained that he was a retired dentist. His city was located in an upscale area that I was familiar with, and I assumed he must be rather wealthy. We exchanged a few messages, and I was intrigued by his status, musical interests, and his engaging questions. He messaged me that he would like to get together sometime and play music. The thought occurred to me, this all sounds too good to be true. Then I noticed that he used his complete first and last name in his profile, which was unusual because people normally choose to only show their first name on dating sites. I decided to Google his name, and to my astonishment, several articles came up about a dentist living in the very city shown on his profile. This person was the prime suspect in the disappearance of his wife 20 years ago. Oh my God. True story. She had been carrying on a known affair with another man and was supposed to be on the way to his house when she disappeared. The man she was having an affair with was exonerated, but her husband, the dentist, had no alibi and wasn't cooperating with the police. He still remains the prime murder suspect, but her body was never found. There was a camera photo from an exit showing her car and a woman's body leaned up against the passenger window with a man's arm visible on the driver's side of the car. She had previously engaged a lawyer to start divorce proceedings and was due to receive a large amount of money from her husband's dental business, as well as a substantial monthly income. She had told relatives that when she announced to her husband that she wanted a divorce, he had gotten down on his knees and begged her not to divorce him because it would bankrupt him. As I read these terrifying words, I shuddered in fear. If I had continued to communicate with this man, we probably would have met and possibly started dating. He tried to message me again after this discovery, but I deleted the conversation and reported him to the dating site so another unsuspecting woman wouldn't start communicating with him. Wow, I thought, a dangerous world out there. Lesson learned, with online dating, I literally knew nothing about a prospect other than what is written in his profile, which may or may not be true. People can present whatever image they want in an effort to sell this image to a prospective date. I found I could never be too careful, and it always paid to spend some time researching the person I might meet through a background check, or in this case, through specific articles on the internet. I can now say with a sigh of relief, there but for the grace of God go I.
Okay, Gary Zenker is our next speaker. By day, Gary Zenker creates marketing strategies and copy for a variety of business needs. By night, he occasionally writes flash fiction, which has appeared in a number of online and print publications. He is the founder and facilitator of the Mainline Writers Group and the Wilmington Chadds Ford Writers Group, as well as the organizer of Noir at a Bar readings for local authors. Gary.
Thank you, and thank you for holding this tonight. Thought I'd start the season a little early, almost like you're at Macy's. It's October, so it's time for Christmas. Mistletoe. The mistletoe was hung above me, daring me to take action. I'd spent half the night standing beneath it, protecting my territory, and trying to find an inconspicuous way to get her to join me here. That isn't easy to do when the her is the cutest woman in the room and a social butterfly. Danielle was my fantasy woman, who was always dating a friend of a friend, or some other guy without friend as part of the descriptor. The one I could never have, and who renders me incapable of speaking in full, coherent sentences. I first met her at a party like this one 3 years ago. I hadn't found the right time to make the right move. Given the fact that she finally made her way over to me, now should probably be that time. So it's Christmas, I said. Yes, it is, she smiled. And here we are. Here, together, I mean. Well, not together, but in the same place, at the same party. Together, yup, party, here. She turned her head left, then right, as though she was looking for somewhere else to be. Then she stared me in the eyes. Even disinterested, she was incredibly pretty. Mistletoe, pretty curl. Christmas party, me. Which of these things was desperately out of place? Two guys, one her recent ex, according to the scuttlebutt, made a straight line towards us on the way to the free alcohol table. Scuttlebutt. Where did that word ever originate, I wondered, as I tried to come up with more single-word sentences to utter. Hey, Deanie, the ex slurred, and grabbed a handful of her ass as he walked by. She giggled and then looked me in the eye. I wish you would stop doing that. It's totally inappropriate and embarrassing. I nodded in agreement, but the entire time wondered what her ass would feel like in my hand. Could she possibly see what I was thinking through that stare? It was a powerful stare. She broke the awkward silence. Hey, that's mistletoe, isn't it? She asked, pointing upward and interrupting my ass and hand thoughts. I feigned ignorance and looked up. Oh yeah, I guess it is. How lame, even for me. When I looked back down, she was suddenly on tiptoe, an extra 3.5 inches taller. Her hand shot up around my neck and pulled my head down. Her chest pressed into me as her lips pressed hard against mine. This wasn't an I'm under the mistletoe and I'll kiss on the cheek because it's a tradition kiss, but more like I'm kissing you full on the lips with my beautiful soft mouth in the way you always hoped for kind of kiss. That was the moment that I'd replay every time I see her with the then current guy she'd be dating and wish it was me. The kiss knocked me off balance, literally. Her arms still wrapped around my neck, we both fell to the floor, which made sounds loud enough to attract the attention of everyone else. Way to knock a girl off her feet, she smiled and started to get up. I mumbled something incoherent that even I didn't understand. The mistletoe dropped from where it was hanging onto her. She picked it up and started to laugh. It's mistlethong. They wedged the mistletoe into a thong. I looked at it and laughed as well. That was way less embarrassing than thinking of her falling on me. She smiled at me. I need to say goodbye to some other people. Merry Christmas, she smiled, threw the mistlethong at me and walked away. She'd only taken 2 steps before she half turned. You know, if you want to get into my Christmas stockings, you're going to have to do better than a mistlethong kiss once every 3 years. A girl can only wait so long dating her second choices. And with that, she walked away. I stood upright, stuffed the mistlethong in my pocket, and walked over to the beer and wine table. I needed to grab 2 cups. Holiday traditions are magic, even when you're Jewish and the traditions aren't yours.
All right, getting down to the end here. Susan Widener is next. Actually, we have three more writers, including Susan. Susan, where's your information? Here it is. Susan G. Widener is a former staff writer with the Philadelphia Inquirer. After working at the newspaper as a news and feature writer, she left journalism to explore creative writing and start her own writing group. The author of 2 memoirs about being widowed and moving on as a single mother, and a novel based on her late husband's Vietnam War memoir, Susan is also an experienced book editor and teacher of both memoir and fiction. In 2009, she started the Women's Writing Circle to explore the craft of writing and empower women to heal, write, and find voice through memoir, fiction, and poetry. The group offers critiques, read-arounds, networking, and book authorship opportunities. The Women's Writing Circle meets on the second Saturday of the month in the community room at the Chester Springs Library. A lifelong resident of Chester County, Susan lives in Chester Springs, and she will be reading from her just-published novel, And the Memory Returns, the story of an older woman looking back on her life and her memories. Susan.
Thanks for holding this, Mark. I think it was 5 years ago you hosted the Women's Writing Circle when we published an anthology called Slants of Light. So this is great to be back. Thank you. This is from the new book, And the Memory Returns. It's about the relationship the main character has with a best friend who has just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Yellowish red bruises under both eyes and a scab on Tony's chin and lip attested to the fall in the sidewalk that ended in hospitalization and now the nursing home. She showed Ava her forearm deeply bruised. No sign of the boyfriend, although the nursing staff said he had dropped in for a visit and brought flowers a few days back. Tony shared a room with a woman who lay motionless in a bed next to a dirty window filtering washed-out sunlight across the linoleum floor. A pair of pants smelling of urine lay crumpled on Tony's unmade bed. Ava put them outside in the hallway. Someone had given Tony a book on dogs. Ava had brought a romance novel. A writer who once penned novels filled with vampires and warlocks and dreamed of becoming a published author, Tony had no reading glasses. Ava walked to the nursing station. Does Tony have reading glasses? As if she had materialized out of nowhere, they looked at her with a combination of irritation and surprise. One woman stood up and walked around the front desk and checked something on a silver cart with meds. Without looking at her, the nurse said, "I'll get a pair from downstairs." Ava couldn't believe the diagnosis, Alzheimer's. Tony had unlined porcelain skin and looked years younger than 67. "Ava," she said, her frightened blue eyes imploring, "I need to get out of here. Please help me." She didn't want to tell Tony she had been put under the guardianship of her cousin, who was in the process of selling her house. It would only upset her. The legal and medical wheels were at work, and nothing could stop them now. Instead, she smiled. "I'll do all I can to help. I'm worried about you," she said, trying to hold back tears. "I'm worried about you too," Tony said. "That all of this has been overwhelming for you. So much worry." Together they laughed. "When was the last time anyone was concerned that things had become too overwhelming for me?" Ava wondered. She reached over and hugged her friend. "I love you." I'll go on with a little more then. In October, she went back to the nursing home. Activity calendars with Halloween drawings of pumpkins and skeletons covered bulletin boards in the community room. It had taken all her emotional strength to make the 90-minute drive. "Be prepared," the nurse said. "When did you last see her?" 3 months? 4? "Be prepared," the nurse responded. The words echoed another time, another place. Jay lay dying, his face as white as his hospital gown. As she sat at his bedside, he plucked at a rosary from his days in an all-boys Catholic high school and muttered about angels and a corridor of light. "It won't be long now," a nurse said. "Be prepared." "Ava?" She rushed to Tony and leaned down to kiss her, then squatted before a wheelchair and reached for her hand. Tony held it tightly and said in a far-off voice, "This place is strange, isn't it? But some of them are nice to me." She took a seat next to Tony's wheelchair and stroked what was left of Tony's hair, graying strings held back by a pink scrunchie. Tony had lost a tremendous amount of weight, and folds of skin hung loosely from her arms, visible in the flowered, short-sleeved blouse. She wore navy polyester slacks and white sneakers. A woman slid a tray in front of Tony. "Are you her relative?" "She's been my best friend for 55 years. "You're not a relative, then." "She's my sister," Ava answered with defiance. As she watched Tony pluck listlessly at the French fries on her lunch plate, it struck her that Tony lived in a world of total anxiety, heightened each day on the precipice of a fast-moving disease. Like the wildfires out west, Alzheimer's, or whatever it was, since she had asked the cousin, Stephanie, whether a doctor had even done a brain scan, was incinerating her. The cousin said it was none of her business. The vacant stare, it seemed more than a nervous breakdown, or even early dementia, but who knew? This was the girl who made Ava believe in herself, who saw her through many lonely nights, their phone conversations rippling with laughter, and Tony's astute observations about the world and the people in their little orbits. The crazy news editor, the narcissistic lover, the abusive parent. This diagnosis took away all that was and ever would be.
James Sassaman is next. All right. James F. Sassaman is a novelist writing literary fiction. He is also a defense litigator before the Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission. His recently completed novel, yes, recently completed novel, glad to say this, is Dempsey's Diner. Framed by Watergate, the novel chronicles the end of the hippie era in a small town, nocturnal, underground, underworld setting. He is currently writing the prequel novel with the working title Two Virgins, and this is a teenage romance set at the height of the hippie era. James.
Thank you, Mark. This scene really needs no setup. We follow the narrator from age 16 to 18. This is probably around 18. The year is 1971. Let's start. Another cake party. Aquinas people and Potts Hill High people on the Holt School campus. Ham's production. Word did not get out until Ham found out at the last minute that his parents were going away. Only his grandmother would be in the house, upstairs the whole time. Tonight, I find faces I don't know. I reckon they're from Potts Hill High. During this senior year, my style of organizing beer keg events has been to invite all the cheerleaders and exclude all the football players. But no cheerleaders here tonight, just some dudes from Aquinas. Ham doesn't even know this Potts Hill crowd. He told me that the word had just spread. The keg is next to the stereo, and I reckon this crowd has been juicing. Everybody's yakking, all except this pretty black chick sitting all by herself on a love seat. From time to time I check her out. Everyone's talking, but nobody's talking to her. After we make eye contact a few times, I head over her way. I'm Ruby. I'm Reardon. Most people call me Dan. Who calls you Reardon? Authority figures and my ex-girlfriend. I'll call you Reardon too. I'm not like these other guys here. I know. Well, how do you know? Ruby runs her finger down my open shirt until she reaches the fourth button, which is where I start my buttoning. That's how I know. This is one sophisticated lady. I'm gonna go put some music on. I'll be right here, Reardon. I go through Ham's albums as people step up to the keg. Then it hits me. This pretty lady made the first move, a physical one at that. This calls for using my métier. So I just stop and join Ruby on the love seat. What about the music? I make my own. How? I get close to her and project sotto voce. They say, Ruby, you're like a song. You just don't know right from wrong. And in your eyes I see heartaches for me. Right from the start, who stole your heart? Ruby, it's you. After the first two notes, Ruby closed her eyes. Only now does she look at me. No guy has ever serenaded me. Then they were fools. You deserve it. You go to Potts Hill High? I went there. I'm in college now. Where? UCLA. As I'm about to resume singing, we hear the stereo and I tell her I'm heading to the powder room. I'll be right back. Inside, I hear the door open and then slam shut, and I find Ruby facing me with both hands behind her back. She's locking the door. Now it's Kissin' Time USA and we are breaking records. Kissin' Time USA becomes Gropin' Time USA. Ruby shrugs her purse strap off her shoulder. This is followed by belt-bottom belt buckle unbuckling, all throughout the world's longest kiss. This calls for application of 3 digits. Middle finger pressure on the fabric, index finger and thumb in pincher formation separating hooks from eyelets. I am now free to move to the front line. Ruby must think so too, since she pulls the whole contraption out and throws it on the floor as we continue our never-ending kissing. Since 60 million Frenchmen can't be wrong, I am now heading in a southerly direction when we hear knocking, which we ignore, but the knocking continues. Open the door, open up. Ain't nobody home with us chickens. Get out of there, we gotta go too. This is followed by a chant. 2, 4, 6, 8, we gotta urinate. And I turn to Ruby, they must be football players. And then I hear Ham, hey, McGuire, you two have to vacate. We're busy. Tell those guys to squirt out on the lawn. Can't. Security guards might catch him. Now I tell Ruby, we gotta go, he's our host. I understand, Reardon. She shoves her unmentionables into her purse and says, I'm ready, babe. And it's out we go. We are now facing what appears to be the Potts Hill football players, with 2 of them rushing into the powder room. Ham seems happy. Football players are quiet now, but I do detect smirking by some of these plug uglies. In the back of this small crowd, I see Spitko. No surprise. He's here right after leaving work. Ruby, looking for something in her purse, that she pulls out a notepad and pen and starts to write. Then hands me the note. I didn't get a chance to tell you, Reardon, I'm flying back to LA tomorrow. This is my phone number. I want you to call me if you're out on the coast. Understand? You best believe I understand. Then to the football players, Ruby waves and says, goodbye, boys. And then to me, goodbye, lover boy. This is followed by one of our never-ending kisses. Ruby rushes out the door. I turn to face athletes who are dispersing. Spit Ghost steps forward. Let me explain what's going on. I already know, man. How's that? Got here 10 minutes ago. People were telling me about some white dude and a black chick getting it on in the bathroom. How can anybody get it on standing up inside a powder room not much bigger than a porta-john? So what? Amount of people out there tonight? Tell me the word's not getting back to your redhead. What do I care? You don't care? You bet I don't care. What are you talking about? I'm talking about my not being able to get back with Colleen. That's everything to me, but I can't keep throwing myself at her. Why do you think I've been chasing cheerleaders? What do you expect me to be doing? Begging? Is my name Frankie Valli? That's it.
Is CL here? CL is not here. Okay, didn't think so. And Monty, are you on Zoom? No? Okay. Yeah, I know. We have just checking,
Oh, okay.
because there's 2 others that are not accounted for. But last but not least, Carolyn. Carolyn, is it Jalone or Jaloni?
Jello.
Jalone. Carolyn Jalone is joining us here for the first time. She's a retired elementary school teacher. Her second career was as an educational researcher for the ARE. What's that stand for?
ARE,
Yeah.
Association for Research and Enlightenment.
Okay. And the work of Edgar Casey. In these later years, she has given workshops and written books from her research materials. Tonight, she will be reading The Chiropractor and the Cowboy from Memoirs Writing Course, and Parking Lot Miracle from her book Psychic Connections.
First one is The Chiropractor and the Cowboy. In the mid-1970s, I was learning everything I could about the Edgar Casey psychic readings. Mostly I was interested in the idea of dreams and reincarnation, but I was also picking up new ideas for keeping the body healthy. When I moved to Virginia Beach in 1980, I had the chance to use the ARE therapy department. I decided to try a chiropractic session. My back was feeling fine, my neck was fine, but I heard how important it was to maintain body alignment. So off I went to get my first chiropractic adjustment. I went to the appointment like a kid going on an amusement ride, and what a ride it turned out to be. The doctor began by grabbing my head and twisting my neck. He wanted to hear a good crack. He pulled, he twisted. My body went around until I felt dizzy. I didn't know what to expect when I went there. But while I was there, I didn't like what was happening at all. I was relieved when the appointment was over. I timidly inquired as I prepared to leave, should my neck be hurting now? He said it would be fine, fine for him. My neck was hurting. That night, my girlfriends and I went to a country western dance club. Those were the days when the urban cowboy was a cult hit in the movies. Michael's, the place we went to, actually had a mechanical bull to ride. The place was noisy and crowded and smelled of smoke. The band was blasting country music, and the crowd was loud to be heard over the music of the band. I was content to sit and watch the dancers do the two-step. My neck still hurt. The slow song ended and a livelier one began. A fellow came up to me and asked if I would like to dance with him. He was young and smiling and tilted his Stetson cowboy hat back on his head. I said yes. So off we go. Well, this quiet-looking cowboy really got into the two-step. The next thing I know, his left hand was holding my hand while his right hand was holding my neck. I tried to tell him about my sore neck, but he couldn't seem to hear me because the music was so loud. Now I'm being quickly moved round the dance floor, practically by my neck. The situation is so absurd. I'm telling him the words of my saga, but I'm laughing so hard at the same time. He thinks I'm having a great time dancing. The music finally ends. He walks me back to my friends and thanks me. I'm trying to be polite as I quell my hysteria, which was still coming out as laughter. All of a sudden I moved my head and realized that my neck didn't hurt. Then I moved it the other way and there wasn't any pain. I was cured, back to normal. Thank God. Let me give you some advice. If you ever get a choice between a chiropractor and a cowboy, choose the cowboy. This is a story out of my teaching classes. Once I researched some of the readings, I wrote a book. And these are 14 of my experiences with psychic connections. Parking lot miracle, mental programming. I researched 5 topics in the summer of 1987. I put these into a course on parapsychology for adults. I taught the new material at our local community college. On the first night, I explained the usefulness of extrasensory perception, ESP. I told these students that they could use their minds to bring things into their lives. Their assignment for the week was to practice programming convenient parking spaces. I recommended that they remember to use the technique when they came to the college so that they could get their car parked as close as possible to the building entrance. The students were enthusiastic about the class assignment. After the first week, they told me how the car practice was working out and how surprised they were at the good results. Yes?
Did you have a lot more, or did you wrap up?
No, I have 2 paragraphs.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. In the following weeks, every class session would start out with their experiences as they tried out the new ideas. By the 4th class, they were talking about car parking, dreams of the week, how to keep energized through the long workday. It was in the 4th class that the seeming miracle happened. The class had already begun when one of the members came in and apologized for being late. She could tell that we had started the new lesson, but she wanted to tell what had just happened in the parking lot. This is what she said. She had left work later than usual, and she knew that she was going to be late for class, so she concentrated very hard on getting a parking space really close to the building. She knew to visualize the space. She repeated her words out loud. She could see herself getting into the space. When she arrived at the parking lot, she was shocked to see it was almost empty. "Oh my God," she said, "what have I done?" She was still in a tizzy as she arrived in the classroom. She just had to know why the lot was so empty. I told her it was spring break for the school, and the only students here were those for the continuing education courses. She laughed out loud and she said, "I didn't think I was that powerful."
Okay, well, that'll wrap it up for our program tonight. The library does close at 8, so thank you to those on Zoom who joined us tonight. I will send you guys a copy of the bios of the writers, so you have that. Everybody else has them here in print, but I will send those to you. One more hand for all our writers tonight. Thank you so much. All of you here. Please, in our remaining minutes, do check out the books written by some of the folks here tonight, available for sale. Thanks all for coming.
Were you doing